You're listening to the Awaken Broadcast with Cecilia Angel, a space for embodied awakening, honest human conversation, and a living, breathing connection to God's source. This is your invitation to awaken.
Welcome back to the Awaken Broadcast. I'm your host, Cecilia Angel. Woo. This episode is going to be coming out well beyond the date. We are in early February right now. Crunch. I don't see how I could not speak to, at least lightly. Let's speak lightly. I want to keep most of this energy outside of my podcast. But look, if you recall, because I know I'm speaking to you from the future. Whoa, I'm in the future right now. I'm speaking to you from the future. Or the past? The past? Past and future all at one time. Yeah, whatever quantum level of time and space I am communicating with you at. Recently, there was a big reveal of some really grody as fuck information that for many of us who have, I would say, fallen on the side of conspiracy theorists, which, what conspiracy at this point? Let's just be real. Some of us have already been well aware of this information that is being revealed to the public. It is very present in my awareness today. It is very present in the collective. And so I want to open up this podcast with a prayer. And not even a prayer. I mean, yes, a prayer for the collective, but a prayer for your understanding that there is a God-laden path that is unfolding before us at this time. What we are seeing unfolding in the United States of America, in the collective, in the world, on a global scale, what we are seeing unfolding is all necessary. And I know it's so uncomfortable, especially if this is all news to you. I know it's so uncomfortable to look at and to confront, and I am with you and I see you. Oh, even me who is already aware of it, it's like seeing it in the public eye, seeing more and more people talking about it, seeing it be a thing. Even having known about it, there was still some part of me that was like, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe it really is a conspiracy theory. It's not. It's not. And the implications of what has been revealed is really heavy. Now, I imagine that when this podcast comes out, we will have passed through the brunt of it. But what's really been present for me today is just a reminder that there is an entire group of us that have been preparing for this moment. This is another domino falling in the direction of God's greater plan. And I don't say that ignorantly. I don't say that in a bypassing way. I mean that in order for God to emerge on the planet, in order for us to truly awaken, we have to crack and break what was before. It has to crumble. It does. In the cracks, consciousness can rise, but because it's been so suppressed, we've been in such a density. Fortunately and unfortunately, those illusions have to lift. As much as there is a part of me that is feeling the grief and the heartbreak of what has been revealed, there is also a part of me that feels the relief that it has been revealed without knowing what exactly will happen going forward. We don't know. We don't know what this is going to look like. However, there is a part of me that does know, because of the visions that I've been having for years, because of the continuous affirmation that I have received for years. I've been telling you the story. And if this is your first time showing up to my broadcast, welcome. I've been in the process, this is episode 7. I've been in the process of telling a wild story of the spiritual awakening that I've been going on. Okay. I had a vision in 2018, a very detailed, all morning, God has been in my field reminding me of that vision, everything that I saw, and affirming the things that my human mind could not comprehend in the moment that I received that vision. Get ready. It's your time to shine. You've been training for this. We've been training for this. You ready? You're already ready. I mean, whenever this comes out, I'm not sure exactly. The actual launch date of this podcast keeps shifting and moving because I'm waiting for a few pieces to fall into place, like my really beautiful, amazing intro outro, which I know that you've seen it now. Isn't it great? One of my best friends in the world made it for me. Thank you. But right now, I have all of these episodes ready and I'm just waiting. We've been just working on getting the intro, outro together. So the actual launch date of the podcast is a question mark. But I know that when it's time, God will say, okay, go. So it's going to be probably like at least a couple months past the day that I'm recording this. And maybe that's actually divine design, that maybe at that point we will have at least like grounded into it. Right now there is outrage. Right now there is shock. Right now there's devastation and tears. And oh my God, how could this happen? I'm really curious to see what unfolds now, because there is an entire group of people that have been preparing for this moment. There is so many people that already knew, and we're trying to bring this to light for so long. I'm just simply relieved that it has now come to light, and I'm just going to sit back and watch how it unfolds at this point. And it also calls me into service on a bigger level, head down, heart forward, to show up for the work that God has called me to do in this life. This that I'm doing right here before you, even just telling you this story, I'm listening. I'm listening. And I'm showing up. And look, the story that I'm going to carry on, my story today. And thank you for, we're on episode 7. I told you the first time I recorded this podcast, it took me 10 episodes to tell my story, because there's so many things that feel, I want you to really grasp the experience that I've been having the last 15 years. That it wasn't just so simple as I woke up and now I'm just, Cecilia Angel, the professional channel, connecting you back to the source of God. No, I'm not going to just make that claim in a willy-nilly way. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show you. When you do a math equation, you have to like show how you got to the answer. I'm going to show you. So that when we get to the end of this story, we can just carry on and you won't have any questions. And if you do have questions, I'm an open book. Okay? You can ask me all the questions you want. But I want to just make it really clear. I didn't just wake up one day and get here. I've got a motherfucking story that I'm sharing with you. Quite candidly and vulnerably, mind you. So let's continue on this story. And once again, if you are just arriving at this podcast here, choose your own adventure. Either you are meant to pick up the story here, or pause, go back to episode 1. This is we're doing story time here. Okay. After story time, I'm going to just talk about all the things that I really want to talk about. Honestly, I am just on the edge of my seat. I've been recording these podcasts so fast. I've been in such a portal telling this story. It's been a portal. because I want to get to the point that I'm actually at where I can just talk to you and share some things with you that I think will be highly valuable. I don't think, I know will be highly valuable. I'm really excited to share who I have become with you in service to you. But first, I'm going to tell you the story as per God's instruction, because God has said, show them what I've made you. Okay, so we're going to carry on the story. So, where did we end off with this story? Last episode, my mom died. I want to just take a moment to really just bare my heart. When my mother passed away, I was taken into the deepest initiation of my life, and I knew it. I knew. I got that news. I'm crying in the front seat, the floor of the front seat of my best friend's car, hearing myself say in the background, oh, this is going to be a gold mine. I knew. That was the biggest catalyst of my life. Whew. Oh, I can feel that. Oh my God. Oh my God. There was, when somebody you love dies like that, any place that you have been bullshitting yourself is revealed. And I was bullshitting myself. I was doing my best. Oh, I was doing my best, but I was scared, okay? Look, 2020, I came out as a channel. I came out as a channel because my partner at the time, and bless him for doing so, pushed me to come out of the closet as a channel. He said, you could really help people with what's coming through you. You know, there's some people that want to be a channel and they seek it. They train themselves to be a channel. They go looking for it. They say, whoa, that's mystical and magical, and I want to have that experience. And so I'm going to go and try and have that experience. I don't feel, although there have been ways that I have seeked out the training that I did require once my channel did open, when it comes to the awakening of my channel and my spiritual awakening in general, it was thrust upon me. When I had that experience in 2016, my spiritual awakening at Vipassana, when that happened, I wasn't looking for that experience. If you recall, if you've been following the story, if you recall, I had went to that meditation course because I just wanted to learn how to meditate. I wasn't trying to have a massive spiritual awakening. I just wanted to anchor in more of a meditative practice. It wasn't on my agenda to come to the realization of God and truth when I sat down to do a 10-day Vipassana meditation course. And everything that started to transpire from that point forward was strictly divinely guided. And I have not been, hear me on this, I have not been a good little student of the divine. I have been resistant. I have fought it. I have questioned it. I have pushed it away. I have said, no, 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 I don't want this. This is too much responsibility. I don't like it. Don't show me that. I just want to be normal. I just want to be normal. That has been such a big part of my path, is the grieving, the grief of not getting to have a normal life. My deepest desire, it's such a joke. My deepest desire has been to just be a normal girl. And if you know me, for my friends, the people in my inner circle that are watching this, you know. I work as a professional channel. Yes, that's my day job. And I know it's so interesting, but at 5 p.m., I'm off the clock and I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl. I don't want to channel for you. I don't want to. Now, hear me in this. Today, I have gotten right with my path, okay? I'm not like that anymore. I am in full accord with my will and divine will are now singing the same note. But that wasn't true for a very long time. And so 2020, I had a partner that, thank goodness, was pushing me. He was tracking my gifts because they were coming on so fast. And I was just blissfully ignorant. This is just the think of it from my perspective. I'm just having this experience. I'm not trying to have this experience. I'm just coming online. From his perspective, every single day, it's almost like he's got his clipboard and he's saying, well, yesterday you had access to this level of perception, but now today you have this level of perception. How did you get there? And he's asking me questions. Thank goodness. I want to take a moment to really offer a deep level of respect for that man. We were only together for a year, but I accelerated in my growth and my spiritual expansion so rapidly as a result of his support and guidance. There's the shadow side of that relationship, which is that I was being pushed to accelerate so fast. And I don't know, was I being pushed or was it just happening? I don't know if it's right or wrong. I think it's just what happened. So the shadow side was that I was getting pushed into my expansion. I was getting pushed to train myself. We were channeling 3, 4, 5 hours a day, not to mention what I was doing professionally, doing readings and channelings professionally. And so I was being pushed to train my psychic ability and use these gifts every single day. And the shadow side of that is that it burnt out my nervous system. I didn't have the foundations to sustain the amount of energy that I was running through my body, plus the amount of energy that I was running through my body every single day was also triggering all of my own shadows. Something that happens when you come into contact with someone who's very conscious and awake, someone who's very aware, you come into that light, which is just the light of awareness. It's like a flashlight. My consciousness is shining through. I'm shining a light on that which is outside of consciousness. So if you think of light as consciousness, shadow is unconsciousness. Asleep, awake. Asleep, awake. So when you come into contact with somebody who has embodied light, embodied awareness, they're very conscious aware, they're paying attention, it will trigger the parts of you that do not want to be seen, that would rather feel safe and comfy and cozy in the shadows. Don't look at that. Don't reflect that to me. Don't hold up a mirror to the thing that I've been avoiding, maybe even for lifetimes. Don't do that. I don't like it. And if you do and I'm not ready, I'm going to attack you. Nope, get out of here. I don't like it. You're not safe. Be gone. The same thing happens inside of ourselves when we awaken. So as my spiritual gifts started coming online rapidly, and I'm saying I didn't just, I sometimes will have people say like, are you clairvoyant or more clairsentient? And I just say, no, I'm just all of it. I am a universal channel. I'm clairsentient, clairvoyant, claircognizant, clairaudient. I hear, feel, see, sense. I have prophetic visions. I can connect to any guide you throw at me. If it is a part of the unified field, which is where I channel from, if it is a part of life, if it's a part of God, I can channel it, comes through me. I can channel it. All of my spiritual gifts are online. And so as these gifts started coming online so rapidly that I couldn't even keep track, and I had no reference point for any of it. Thank God for my partner, because he was reading books, he was studying it, he was watching this happen for me, because as soon as I left my other relationship, it was like a cork was pulled out and all of a sudden I was, now that I had the space and the permission to just be myself, I was popping off. And so he was keeping track. He was looking at all the resources that were available for people that were awakening their channel. And he was relaying that information to me to help me to awaken and to support my process. Now, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect guidance because he didn't know. And also he was so excited about it, like a child excited about it. Oh my God, every single day we'd sit down to channel and he would just be like, I can't wait to talk to your guides. I can't wait to talk to the guides. I can't wait to see what they say today. It was sweet. Honestly, it was really sweet. But because I was running all that energy through my body, was also triggering my shadows. And so I was having the same experience of, I don't want to channel for you. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be doing any of this that I'm being pushed to do professionally, because every time that I do, it exposes where I still have work left to do. the things that I've avoided looking at, the things that I've been bullshitting myself around, the things that I don't want to have to feel, that I don't want to have to remember. My human trauma was also being triggered and brought to the surface simultaneously while these gifts were coming online. It was a lot. It was a lot for me to handle all at once. It was like having 7 balls up in the air and I'm trying to juggle them. And at the same time, I had started a business. I had no idea how to run a business. I had only worked for other people. I had never even considered being an entrepreneur until life forced me into it. God forced me into it and said, well, you're going to have to work for yourself because there's no category for what you are. I have no other choice but to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to run a business. I barely knew how to do what it was that I was doing. And I remind you, because I had followed one of my best friend's dad's advice when I was 18 years old to enjoy my 20s and to max out my credit cards and worry about it later. When I quit my job, I was $70,000 in debt without any idea how to run a business, without any idea how to make money. I was so broke that I was having creditors call me 5, 6, 7 times a day. They were calling my old employer. They were calling my best friend I had put her as my emergency contact, not realizing that this would happen. So while I'm trying to navigate my own spiritual awakening and my gifts suddenly coming online rapidly, while also being thrust into a profession that feels totally foreign to me, I don't know how to run a business where I'm a professional channel and now I'm doing readings for people and people are so excited to receive this wisdom that's coming through me. I'm also getting calls from creditors. We also then hit 2020 was such a wild year because I was in debt. I was trying to figure out business. I was trying to heal. My spiritual gifts were coming online. People were coming to me for support with their own spiritual gifts coming online because there was a mass awakening that happened in 2020 and they needed guidance. And so I was offering guidance while also moving through my own process of awakening. It was a lot. It was a lot. Meanwhile, I was also doing a dieta. I was training to co-facilitate in ayahuasca ceremonies, which is a whole other thing. I don't even think there's space for me to talk about my dieta. I feel like I need to do like a whole episode specifically around my work with ayahuasca because that was a whole world. In 2020, I was doing ayahuasca. I was sitting with ayahuasca 3 times a month for 5 months straight. Deep initiatory work. I was also because my teacher, the woman who became my teacher, she saw something in me. My Ikudo started coming online. My light language started coming online. She was seeing what was happening for me and she took me under her wing. She wanted me to be serving in ceremony. I was helping her during ceremonies. I was helping other people during ceremonies and training with the medicine, which was also initiating a lot of deep, deep, deep healing and shadow work that was moving through me. It was during my dieta with ayahuasca that it became very, very, very clear the level of ancestral healing that I was here to do because it was being revealed, 1, the pain that I was holding with my mother, and 2, that I had inherited. The reason that I was suffering in my life was not necessarily because of what I had experienced directly. For the most part in my life, I have been deeply protected. When I was born, my father saw, because I remind you, my 2 older sisters, my mom lost them to the foster system. There was no chance I would ever be in my mother's care. My mother was in rehab 2 weeks after I was born. She was deemed too toxic to breastfeed. She was not available for the role of mother whatsoever. And my dad spent my entire childhood doing his best to keep me sheltered from even knowing that any of that world existed. However, when I grew into my mother's womb, I, especially as an empathic, very sensitive soul, I sucked up all of my mother's pain. I pocketed it all in my little nervous system, in my little body that was just developing. I picked up her blueprint. The majority of the trauma and the pain that I've had to overcome was not mine. However, here's the thing. We often hear people talk about, oh, it's not mine, it's not mine. But if it's living inside of my body And it's dictating the way that I'm behaving and the way that I'm acting and the way that I'm feeling and the way that I'm engaging and relating to myself in the world, then that shit is mine. And yes, there were things alive inside my body that made no sense to my experience because they happened to my mother. And that is a really important piece here. Before we get into the story about my mom, the pain that I have had to overcome is brutal, hellish, awful. The level of abuse and pain, I will never tell the details of what my mother endured. But if you can think of the worst possible things that could happen to a person, not to mention a woman, that was my mother. And as I grew inside of her womb, I sucked it all up. And when I turned 19 and I had my initial spiritual awakening and I realized, oh, there's something wrong. And I was confused because I was acting like her. There were behaviors that were reminiscent of her. I was confused. But in hindsight, I can now look at who I've been and the way that I've acted. And it's just, it all makes sense because of what happened to her. My mother's soul and I have this very powerful contract of agreement, which is that there were many things that my mother absorbed into her body. Now, I remind you, at the end of the last episode, I mentioned that my mother left this life, shook it off, and carried on as an ascended master level soul. Blinding white light, clear, beautiful, brilliant, completely unrecognizable from the woman that I knew in the physical. We are in deep soul connection. I would say that my relationship with my mother has deepened since she passed compared to where we were at in the physical. But something that she has shown me is that her body stood in front of our ancestral line. I get the image of a goalie in front of a goalpost. And she took the brunt of this intense darkness. I call it an ancestral curse. The level of darkness that runs, especially through my matriarchal line, is the kind of shit that that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. It is true dark. Dark. I've had to go to the bellies of actual hell to recover my ancestral line and myself from it. It's been hardcore, dude. So hardcore and real. But she showed me how she stood there and took the brunt of it. And she said to me, no wonder my mother could barely get out of her chair. She was always drunk. She was always high. She was always out of it. At the end of her life, she could barely walk. Her whole body was just, and even my mother died of an overdose in October 2020. But the thing is that was it an overdose? We don't really know. Her heart stopped. Her heart stopped. There were 1,000 reasons why my mother might have died. There were so many things that could have taken my mother's life. So it's hard to actually say what exactly it is that she died from. Was she doing drugs when she died? Yes, she was. But she didn't take care of her body at all. She just surrendered. She gave up because she was holding so much shadow. And something that I saw, when I think of her children, she had 3 children, my oldest sister, my second oldest sister, and then me. I told the story of my sister dying of an overdose in 2016. She was so dense in that energy. And then my second sister also got addicted, almost died. Crazy story. If you haven't watched that episode, I think it's episode 3 or 4. She got addicted, went to jail, was living a really hard life, almost died, and completely turned her life around and got clean. So it filtered. Then it got to me. When I was born, I was literally protected. Get her away from all of that. I was only allowed to see my mother during visitation hours when I was growing up. There was only a couple days of the week that I could see her, and it was for a very limited amount of time. If we exceeded that amount of time, it was big trouble. So I had visitation with my mother, but she had no custody over me whatsoever. What I see in this is the filtration that I'm really blessed, and I'm so grateful for this. I was really blessed to be protected But because I was so protected, I had the capacity to feel and process and heal a depth of pain that my mother never could have. She was never given the tools. She was never given the guidance. She never had the desire. I don't think she even had the capacity in her physical body. She was holding so much of that pain inside of her body that all she could do was just tap out. There was no way she was getting better. And when I was in Death Valley, I came to an acceptance of this, that there would not come a day where my mother would get better, that I would just be watching and waiting for her to die. And in those final years of her life, her and I became very, very close because I was able to forgive her, because I didn't need her to be any different. I wasn't asking her to change. I wasn't asking her to get better, or I would just come to her and we would enjoy each other's company. And I had very strong boundaries. I had very strong boundaries about how much of my mother I could handle, very short periods of time. But in those times, whenever I was with her physically or on the phone with her, we actually got to have the experience of a really beautiful relationship because her walls came down around me and she let me see her. I didn't need her to be anything. It was just, okay, I know that you're not going to be around for much longer, so let's just be together as best as we can. Now, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect, but I am grateful that I was able to get to that point so that when my mother died, I was really at peace. I was ready for my mother to die. I say that I was ready for my mother to die only because, as I've said before, age 6, my mom told me that she wouldn't live past age 42. Now, she did. I think my mother was 57, 58 when she died. But for my entire life, I was preparing for my mother's passing because she was sick. My dad would always tell me that my mom was sick. My mom would always tell me she was sick. I was never told why. I got to figure that out when I became old enough to actually reflect and realize, oh, like my mother did drugs and drinks a lot of alcohol. There's a reason, but I was very sheltered from the actual truth. I was just told she's sick and that she wouldn't live for very long. So I was always prepared as you can be, for her passing. However, when it actually happened, you can prepare as much as you want, but when the actual experience occurs, you just got to face it however it shows up. So I want to really paint the picture here. When I got the news of my mother's passing, I had been going through a roller coaster of spiritual awakening that truly prepared me for this moment. In the years leading up to my mother's death, I was awakening spiritually. I was collecting many, many tools. I had started my business. I was really on path. And so I was as prepared as you can be to move through the painful process that came upon me. But when my mother died, I had no other choice but to apply everything that I had been learning on the deepest, most intentional level to my own life. And it's not to say that I wasn't doing the work of embodying what I was receiving, but I was receiving at such a rapid pace that it was hard for my body to keep up. And there was nothing that I could do to avoid the energetic and emotional purge that had to happen in order for me to become what I knew I was headed towards. The version of me that I knew I was destined to become. I had to move so much out of the way. And my mother passing was the catalyst to make sure that that happened. I surprised myself with how much I was keeping it together the first couple months. I mean, everybody grieves differently, but I barely cried about it. I cried about it quite a bit the first week. And then I just kind of moved on. And when my mother died, I was halfway through holding 8, 9 people through my one-on-one container. So when she died, I just put all of my energy into focusing on serving the people that I was responsible for and for getting my business together, because I had really realized that I didn't have a very strong foundation because I didn't know how to run a business. Honestly, things were expanding way faster than I could keep up with, and I didn't have the systems in place to match the growth and momentum that started to move through my life. So in the last episode, I talked about going to Austin. I came to Austin on a bit of a whim. I mean, I already had a flight to LA because I was going to go to an event in LA and I was just going to come back to Canada. But things were really uncertain at the time. And a friend of mine told me, hey, if you want to come to Austin and you want to be in the community that had been flocking there, I told you there was an exodus. There was an exodus. Everybody went to Austin, Texas. And she said, if you want to get in on this, you're going to have to come down like soon. So without much of a thought, I packed up myself and a suitcase, got my cat. I took my flight to LA, but then I just took another flight right to Austin. And I only had a 3-month visa. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't pack up my apartment, nothing, which ended up causing some drama between me and my friend that I'd been living with, unfortunately. And when I look back at where I was at energetically, I was starting to unravel. When I got to Austin, Texas, I was so salty about being a channel because I was experiencing so much just in my regular human life that trying to uphold this image of being a professional channel and channeling guides, and I just didn't care. I didn't care. I remember I got to Austin. I went to a New Year's Eve party shortly after. I got to Austin December 18th, so right in time for solstice. And I went to a New Year's party. And at this party, it was a bunch of people who professionally channel. And this was what I was so excited about coming to Austin, is that there's so many spiritual people. The spiritual community in Austin is vast, vast. So it wasn't weird to be who I was in Austin. It still isn't. I really fit in around here. And so I went to this New Year's Eve party amongst many other professional channels, and sitting there talking to this one man, and he asked me, well, what do you do? And I cringe as I say this to him. I say, oh, I'm a channel. And I could see him look like, okay, who do you channel? Oh, this collective of guides from the Pleiades star system. Like, it was really like, please do not ask me about this, because I didn't feel in accord with being a channel for my guides anymore, because God had a month prior came in and said, I am your only guide. You are now only going to channel from the unified field. It is not going to be working with guides in other dimensions. No, pushing it all out, and truly pushed it out. And so even that didn't even feel real anymore. It didn't even feel true. Like, yeah, technically this is what I'm known for, but it's not who I am. And now that my mom has died, I don't even know who I am. I felt so deeply out of integrity. The way that I had been doing things before my mom died just was not working. Nothing was working. And I got to Austin, and a lot of my friends who had put me up on a pedestal as Cecilia the channel, Cecilia the oracle, they saw who I was being. I could barely hold it together. I was falling apart. My shadows were coming up. I was in pain. I was sad. I wasn't in a good place. I just wasn't. And I got called out. I got called out. Somebody in the community started to talk about me behind my back, which was really hard at the time. It was a really vulnerable thing at the time because I was already so raw and vulnerable. I basically got low-key canceled. So it wasn't like a major public canceling, but amongst the community, there was somebody who was well known and respected in the community that started going around to my friends and my clients and saying, you can't trust her. Her channel is not clear. Which is the greatest, hear me in this. This is the greatest gift that anybody ever did for me, as hard as it was. Ooh, the ego. Oh, my ego. Because she wasn't wrong. I was a fucking mess. I was a mess. I was sad. I was hurting. I was angry. All of my pain from my mother in relationship to my mother started to come up to the surface, and there was nothing to be done about it. The shadow was coming through me, and I don't blame any single person that walked out of my life at that time. I can only imagine how uncomfortable it was to watch me begin the descent into darkness that I went through, that ended up taking me 4 or 5 years to really get through the brunt. And I would say only just 2025 was a final boss battle of that ancestral curse. And so I don't blame anyone who was keeping their distance from me, especially anyone who met me in 2020 and then watched what happened after my mom died, because I started to fumble it hard. And it got to the point where, in my integrity, I actually had no other choice but to drop my business. And my healing work became a full-time job. My full-time job was to heal myself. The work that I was doing with clients, and bless, I wasn't even trying to market my services or anything, but I got just enough and just the right match of people that were coming to me during that time with a desire for me to support them, just enough to get by so that I could primarily be focusing all of my energy on my healing and feeling my feelings and expressing and moving. Everything that I now teach today, the quantum embodiment process, the style of breath work, meditation, everything that I do in my work was birthed at this time. Not because I learned it from somebody else. Hear me in this, everything that I teach is not something that I learned from somebody else. It is what God gave to me during a time of crisis that I had to use for myself in order to get through the gauntlet of an initiation that I went through from 2020 to 2025. I was taken through a deep initiation into the shadow of my ancestral trauma, and a major initiation with my mother of really getting right with what I went through with her personally as her daughter and what that meant for me, as well as coming to terms with the fact that and being okay with the fact that I was holding her memory in my tissue, which meant that I had to face and process and move through, with her support, but move through trauma and pain that made no sense to my experience. And it was something that haunted me day in, day out. As much as I was showing up to the work, and the clients that would find me, I was supporting them, and I was supporting them at a high level, because my channel, regardless of the pain that I was going through, my channel, it got me through. It got me through. And I bless God for that. Because no matter how hard it got, the information that was moving through me was still so good, so solid by a miracle. Anyone who worked with me in that time, I just want you to know that the shit that I was going through behind the scenes was insane. Truly was taken into the bellies of hell, because that's where my ancestral line was. That's how deep that darkness went. And that shit was hard. Like, I'm still tired. That was a lot. I'm still recovering. I feel very confident on the other side of it. Overcame that shit. But the things that I had to see and feel and remember and experience. Get here? That shit was hardcore. And so early on in 2021, I lost a bunch of friends. Now, something else happened, which was such a blessing and a gift, which is, if you recall in the last episode, I mentioned a man who is now my husband. And I will definitely have him on the podcast at some point. God gave me the greatest gift of my life when God brought my husband into my life. And it happened in a very unconventional way. And I will share that story in a moment. But what I will say is that when everything was falling apart, it was only my husband. It was only my husband. Thank you, baby. That could have got me through what I went through. And he knows. He knows what it has taken for me to get here. And the shit that I've had to overcome, the things that I've had to move through, and the pain that I've had to endure. And at every single turn, even when I thought there's no way you can hold this one, there's no way you can handle this, he carried me through. And I wouldn't be. I could just fucking sob cry. I wouldn't be here if not for my husband. I don't know what I would have done without him having my back and seeing me and calling me forward and giving me the support that I needed every single moment. Because I don't even need to go into all the nitty-gritty details of the last 5 years, because it was just such a deep portal of healing and reclamation and liberation and truly breaking an epic ancestral curse that haunted me and haunted my mother and my sisters. And if you remember when I was in the desert in Death Valley, after my experience of throwing rocks at the wall, I said, it ends with me. It ends with me. Everything that I have done in my healing, it's like a mother's protection, because what I have received through healing this wound with my mother, what I have received through that in facing what my mother could not face, I feel in many ways that I have shown up for my mother's spirit that lived and persisted through me even after her death. I've shown up for it in the way that a mother protects her children. The pain that I inherited as a future mother, I have felt that pain and said, you're not going to touch my babies. What happened to me in the womb is not going to happen to my children. Because I showed up, even when it was motherfucking agonizing, even when it was terrifying. I have had to look at terrifying pain. Ooh. Even when it scared the shit out of me, I continued to look. I stayed locked in on those shadows, even when I wanted to run, because there was no fucking way that that pain would be inherited by my children. My children have called me forward because, one, I will never do to my children what my mother did to me. I also recognize that it wasn't her fault. It wasn't her fault. She was used and abused and violated and harmed. And I stand in this life as an advocate to ensure that that kind of shit does not happen. Honestly, it is, in this moment, I'm really feeling the synchronicity of the rage that I've been feeling all day about this revelation around the Epstein files and all of that. We're not going to go too deep into it because I don't want that. Fuck you. Because I don't want that. Honestly, as I'm saying all of this, because the kind of darkness that my mother endured through her body in her life is the worst of the worst. And it's actually incredibly synchronistic that I opened up this podcast talking about this revelation that has occurred around the Epstein files and the disgusting atrocity that is. Ugh. Because something that I have been recognizing today on a visceral level, and that is really landing in this moment as I speak to you, is that the thing that enrages me about that which is just the ultimate crime against humanity. Crimes that were done to my mother brutally. I know it is part of my mission and my dharma. Ooh, I feel it in my whole body. It is part of my dharma to make a stand and to be an advocate against that level of harm. And I do so not only with my voice and my willingness to hold a mirror up to the darkest truths. I am not afraid of the dark. That shit does not scare me. Like I said, I have been to the bellies of hell. And I walked myself back to the light. Part of my mission on this earth is to make a stand against that which has been done in opposition of God, in opposition of love, in opposition of consciousness, that which has been born through unconsciousness. And so I feel this mother protection that comes through me when it comes to the pain that I have endured on my own behalf and on behalf of my mother, but greater than that, on behalf of a world that has suffered. I know the pain of this world. I know it so viscerally. I have experienced it. I have looked at it. I was talking to a friend the other day, and her jaw dropped when I said this to her. I said, I have done well over 1,000 rage releases. Well over 1,000. The hours and hours and hours and hours and hours that I have spent in deep, energetic, emotional processes. Well over 1,000 hours. If not well over 2,000, like I don't know how many hours I have spent. 2020 to 2025, the majority of my time was spent in process, on my knees, screaming, crying, shaking, expressing, sounding, channeling, receiving visions. That's what I've spent the last 5 years doing. I've spent the last 5 years on my knees in prayer, becoming the version of myself that I knew I would have to be in order to show up to this time in history in the way I know how to show up, in the way I know I want to show up at this time so that I can actually be of service. I've been so devoted. I've been so devoted, willing to go into the deepest, darkest shadows to reclaim myself so I can be a guide for the people that right now I know are going through a hell of their own. So I can be a light in the dark places. I cannot support someone through their own dark night of soul, if we want to call it. I can't do that unless I am willing to go to those places. And I've been willing to go to those places. And it's so easy to get lost in those places. And I tell you, there have been many times over the last 5 years that I thought I might get lost, that I wasn't sure if I would make it out, that I had to rely on the tiniest speck of light to pull me out with the horrors that I have faced. But from the bellies of hell, I crawled up the stairs back to heaven. And now that I know the love of God, and it is locked in, that is the only thing that gets passed on through my bloodline. Oh, and it is my greatest accomplishment. It is my greatest accomplishment in my life to reclaim myself from that level of darkness. That's what I've been doing. Ooh. And I really thought, when I first started recording this podcast, I really thought that I would give you like all the nitty-gritty details. Like, oh my God, we're only at 2020. We're only at 2021. Like, there's so many things that happened in the last 5 years. Yeah. Yeah. But really, as I said that just a few moments ago, really, what's the majority of the things that I've been doing in the last 5 years? Purging, processing, confronting, facing, shaking, breathing, sounding, screaming, punching pillows to get all of this pain out that is not just mine and it is not just my mother's. It belongs to the collective. It belongs to the collective. I have been experiencing collective pain, the horrors that exist on our planet. And I've been intentionally going into them, studying it, learning how to alchemize that shit through my own body, because I could feel how much pain I was experiencing in every single moment, no matter how hard I tried, as a result of the pain that I inherited and that this world has inherited. The pain that I've been moving through has never been about me, but I was feeling it and it made me sick. It made me sick and sad and hurt. And this morning I felt something. I felt a levee break going on Instagram and seeing everybody talking about the Epstein files and this disgusting shadow that was revealed. I said, okay. It's clearing. It's clearing. It's moving through. And those of us who have been getting the call are ready. We're ready. We've been preparing. It's locked in. Okay, once again, my computer did the weird slow motion thing, which is a really interesting timing, very interesting timing considering what I was just talking about. Anyways, I'm just going to say, it feels very synchronistic. I feel that so much is converging right now in my own life and my own realization regarding my dharma and what I am here for and how I'm here to serve. Because I feel this protector in me that is here to make a stand for love, for consciousness, for awareness, recognizing that we are at a precipice right now. We have no other choice but to awaken. And this isn't like, oh, maybe we could get more conscious. No, we actually have, it's a survival situation. We need to awaken. It's time for us to evolve. We have no other choice. We are in the pressure cooker of evolution. And we're seeing the symptoms of that right now in a really big way. It's actually kind of funny to me right now that I had this idea that I would share so much more about the last 5 years. But really, I don't need to. Because all that the last 5 years has been for me is a reclamation, and the nitty-gritty details don't really matter. What does matter is that I stand before you now having faced the darkest dark on behalf of myself, on behalf of my mother, on behalf of the collective. And I have come out shining with a clear connection, direct connection to God. God has been present through all of it, through every single moment. And so what I think I'm going to do actually, Pietro, si. Oh, what a gift. That's really nice of you. Pietro cantra tira santra. That's true. I feel that my whole life right now, who I am now, is evidence of the devotion I've given in the last 5 years. Thank you. Tira sientra mia songai. You're welcome. Vaya sientra mi. And so I'm actually just going to share because I had mentioned that my husband, okay, I'm going to end this podcast. Wow, that's really exciting. That means that after this, we can have fun. I will share more of my stories from time to time. I'm sure it'll come up. This feels like a little surprise from the divine for me. I really expected like 3 more episodes. No, sí. So I'm going to share the story of my husband because, like I said, I wouldn't be here without him. I could not have gotten through the last 5 years without him. I mean, what a gift. And our story is such a special story. It's one of my favorite stories to tell. And so I think the best thing for me to do to close out story time, wow, that's so special, is to share the story of me and my husband. After I left my long-term relationship of 7 years, and that was incredibly traumatic and difficult, and then I got into this relationship that really taxed my nervous system. It really pushed my edges, and it wasn't a good fit long term at all. So when I came out of all that, my mom died. I broke up with my boyfriend a week after my mom died. I went back to the same consciousness. You can see a pattern here. Remember when I was 19 and I said, I'll be alone for 5 years? After that breakup, and after everything that I went through, and after my mom died, I came back to, okay, I'm going to be alone. I don't even care about relationship. Let me just be alone. And I said to God, do not bring me anybody. Don't bring anyone into my life unless they are my husband. I don't want to date. I don't want little flings. I'll be alone for 5 years if I need to, 10 years. The only person I will receive is my husband, is my partner, the one that I will spend the rest of my life with, because I knew that I was worthy of that. After all the bullshit I'd went through relationally, I said, I will not agree. And I claimed it. I spoke it out to the heavens. I said, this is exactly who he is. I laid it out. I painted the picture exactly. Do not give me anything less than this. I don't care how long it takes. That's the only thing that I want in a relationship. I'm done. Now, I come to Austin. The day I arrive in Austin, Texas, I put it on Instagram that I was in Austin. My husband, Ian, he sees that I'm in Austin, and it just by chance, he happens to also be in Austin. Again, we met in Fit for Service. So let me just wind it back here. I met him 4 days after my mom died. He came to the house that we were doing sound healings every night at the house, and he came and participated in our sound healing. Him and I became really good friends that night. At no point did I ever consider him romantically. That was not, like I said, he was actually dating very briefly. He was dating one of my friends from Fit for Service. And so that wasn't even something that was on the table. And I wasn't looking for any kind of romance. So when he reached out to me and said, hey, I'm also in Austin, he was living in Portland at the time. I'm also in Austin. We should get together. Let's grab coffee, go for a walk. And so I said, yeah, I'm actually free today. Let's do it. And he came over. I was staying with a friend who had so much forest behind her house. So we went for a walk in the forest and we had such a good time. We just caught up. We told stories. We both agreed that we were so happy to not be in a relationship and that we weren't looking for anything. It was all very innocent at first. But we were having such a good time and having the best conversations. The day just kept going on and on and on. We ended up hanging out all day long, and we still reflect on this day. It was one of the best, most fun days ever. We had such a good time, and we were talking about God and movement and fitness and life and spirituality and our goals and the things that we were going to do in our life and our visions for the future. And we were just clicking. And by the evening, it had become really clear to both of us that this was not just friendship. Now, he had just recently dated one of my friends from Fit for Service. Also, that friend was also in my 101 container working to awaken her spiritual gifts. So she had been going through a spiritual awakening. She needed support with the gifts that were coming online for her. So she was working with me 101. We, of course, were friends through the community, but I had just a few weeks prior been supporting her as she realized that Ian wasn't a good fit for her, that they weren't actually destined to be in a relationship. Instead, they actually started for a brief time a business together, and they realized that was the relationship that they were meant to explore together. It wasn't romantic. I think they were together for like a few weeks. It wasn't anything serious. However, in my integrity, especially with, as you know, my history, when I was presented with this, as soon as I was sitting there and I realized, oh no, now all of a sudden I'm feeling things between myself and this person, definitely cannot do that. After the last time, I knew that that was something I would not do. And even though what they had together wasn't very serious and it wasn't very long term, I just didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And as I felt this start to open up and I could feel him starting to notice it, I had to say something. It was now the evening after we had spent the whole day together and I had to name it. And I said, look, I know that there's a thing happening here, but in my integrity, I cannot do this. This is not even in the realm of possibility. I would feel really out of integrity if I did that. And he said, yeah, I understand. But there's clearly a thing. There's clearly a thing. But I was standing in it. And so the next day, I called my friend. I told her exactly what was happening. I told her that things had come up, that I didn't mean to, that wasn't my intention upon entering into this day of friendship. It wasn't my intention when we made the agreement to get together that day, but it ended on a clear realization that there was energy between us. And I was very candid about that. We processed some of the feelings that came up for her in that, and we agreed that we would continue to be in dialogue, but I told her that I wasn't going to pursue anything unless I had her blessing, and I wouldn't go further unless she gave that to me. Now, by synchronicity, I was actually going to be staying in a house with this same woman. She was about to be in Austin and we were going to be staying in a house together alongside one of our other friends. My other friend was really against the fact that anything was happening there, and she advised me against it. And I told her, I'm not seeking this out. I'm not seeking this out. However, a few days later, Ian sends me a message. He says, look, can we just get on a Zoom call? Because at this point, he was back in Portland. I agreed to the Zoom call hesitantly. I was very hesitant in the beginning. And we get on the Zoom call, and he basically gives me a proposition. And he says, look, there's obviously a thing here. I see it. I understand that on paper, there's all of these barriers that are here in place, but I would really like to pursue this regardless. And although my heart ached for it, I said, I can't right now. Maybe down the road we explore it. But right now is the timing could not be worse. I just supported our friend through your breakup. She was in my container. There's 1,000 reasons why this is not in integrity. And I see it. I do see it. And we're just going to have to put a pin in it for later. And he said, okay, I guess so. And we got off our Zoom call. A week later, me, this friend that had been in a relationship with him, and another one of our close friends are moving ourselves into this new space that we're going to be staying in. And we're in the process of relocating. And I'm in the car with one of my friends, not the one that he dated, but another one. And she's trying to have me hold space for something. And I was not present. I was not present at all. And she turns to me and she says, what is going on? Where are you right now? I need you. And I take a deep breath because I wasn't talking about the fact that I had caught feelings because I felt so out of integrity and I was so afraid of repeating an old pattern. That really mattered to me. Look, I was very aware of the pattern clearly. If you've been following the story, my spiritual awakening started by cheating on a boyfriend. It also really catalyzed that lack of integrity, also catalyzed the next phase of spiritual awakening. And so I was very aware of that pattern, and there was no way that I was going to repeat it. And so I wasn't talking about the feelings that I had caught. It didn't even make sense to me. Nothing had happened that night, but something in me, all I could feel was this ache in my heart. And so when my friend asked me what's going on, I took a deep breath and I said, look, I haven't been wanting to say anything because I don't want to be out of integrity. But ever since I spent time with Ian a week ago, my heart has been aching and it's making it really hard to focus. And so my friend rolls her eyes and she says, okay, fine. We go upstairs and she tells me to go into meditation. She says, look at your connection psychically, see what is there for you. Figure out what it is that's between you and him so that you can work this out. And so I sit down I close my eyes and look, before I even go into this part of my spiritual gift is the ability to perceive into other lifetimes. I see visions, I see feeling. It's very visceral when I go into a quantum psychic space. So when I sat down, I closed my eyes and I immediately just go to the feeling in my heart. And as soon as I touch that feeling, I start to sob on the floor. And I mean, not a little, like I'm not crying just a little bit. I am sobbing a puddle of tears, like I just lost somebody. And as I do so, all of a sudden a vision starts to open up and it's visceral. Every time that I tell this story, my memory of this vision is always so vivid because I'm in my kitchen. I can literally feel the air. I can literally smell it. I can see everything in this home. And it's interesting because whenever I think about this home, it's not from some old time. It really highlights that past lives are not necessarily linear time or even in the same reality or dimension. Because we're in this modern looking home. The counters are white, the cupboards are white. It's a little bit messy. Like I can see there's like coloring books and things on the table. We're in the kitchen. I see magnets on the fridge. Like I can really see, I really remember this. And I get a knock on the door and there's a door just off the kitchen. And I walk to the door and I receive the news of my husband's death. And in the vision and viscerally, this is why I was sobbing. I watched myself collapse to my knees. And in the vision, I was home alone, but I could feel and sense that we had children. And I was thinking about our children and like what happened, like he was healthy. When I remembered my husband in this life, what I remembered was that we were married. And it wasn't just a whatever marriage. It was, oh my God, this is the man that I will spend the rest of my, I am so madly in love with this man. It was a good marriage. Like we really loved each other. And as I was remembering this, I realized this was the last time that I had seen him. So I come out of the visionary space. I come out of this experience and I look to my friend and I say, oh, I understand. Like I was married to him. He was my husband. We were madly in love. And it's funny because, and I didn't remember this. I didn't remember this because at the time when it happened, I like pushed it away. Plus I was in the weird post-death haze. But I remember when my friend brought Ian, my husband, to the house that night for the sound healing. She brought him in the house and she said, look what I found. And as soon as I saw him, I felt my body, and I could only know this in hindsight. My body responded, mine. And this was the only little sliver. And I totally forgot that that had even happened until I remembered that I had been married to him. Now, obviously, this brought a lot of clarity to the feeling that I was having because the feeling I was having didn't match the experience that him and I had. I mean, we had a really good time together, but nothing happened. But I couldn't stop thinking about him. I couldn't stop feeling this heartache around it and this longing. And so I was staying in a house with my friend who had dated him for a while. So I go across the hallway and I say, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And I sit down and I share what I had just seen in the vision. And as I'm doing so, she's sobbing. She's sobbing because I'm also crying. Like, holy shit, I just remembered. Now I'm grieving also because I remembered my husband dying. And after I'm done telling the story, she looks at me and she says, look, because I remind you, they started a business together. They were doing these really cool men and women's circles. I kind of wish that they still did them. They were really good. So she says to me, I talked to Ian every single day. They were on Zoom calls all day, every day as they were building this business. They didn't end up proceeding with this business, but this is what they were doing at the time. And she says, Ian mentions you every single time I talk to him. He's been talking about you nonstop. And at this point, I'm just curious to know what this is. You have my blessing. I need to know what it is between the two of you. That was the greatest gift that she could have given us in that moment. Because, of course, I then went and sent a message to Ian and I said, look, we've been given the green light to go forward with our relationship. And he immediately booked a flight back to Austin. Now, get this, a few weeks later, me, this friend that he briefly dated, and Ian are now living together under the same roof. We're staying together in the same house. While Ian and I are realizing the truth that I felt in that vision viscerally, within days, not even almost immediately, we realized, oh, I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you. It was so clear, which was so funny because I had put out that prayer to God saying, don't bring me anyone unless it's my husband. I don't care how long it takes. Like right before I left for Austin. And so talk about an answered prayer. And I mean, my husband checks all of the boxes and then some. Every time I think he couldn't get better, he does. Anyone who knows my husband knows how ridiculously special he is. He is so special, and I am so lucky and so blessed. So within just a few days of being together, we knew, oh, I'm going to marry you. We always make a joke that we didn't date, we didn't get engaged. We were just married right out the gate. There was no in between. While we're in the house and we're falling in love, our friend, who was a breathwork facilitator, she offered us a guided breathwork experience. And so she took us through this breathwork journey. And it was a really special experience. And we came out on the other side. She pulls me aside and she said, I don't know what it was I was picking up on, but something was coming up about Ian regarding a past life. And that's not really my area of expertise. And that's all that I got. And of course, at the time, especially, I was doing past life regressions. I mean, it's not that I don't do past life regressions. I just don't really do psychic readings anymore. That's not really my thing. I use my spiritual gifts for a different purpose, but at the time I did. And so I said, oh, well, let's just go look into it. And so we go up to my room, we set up the space, and we start to go into this past life regression. I'm not even thinking about the vision that I had about the two of us. I'm just curious about what might come up and come through for this man that I was falling madly in love with. And so we go into the space, and as soon as I close my eyes, this vision opens up, and it's the exact moment that I saw in my vision when I remembered him, but from his perspective. And his spirit was watching me get the news of his death, watching exactly that moment as I'm falling to my knees, trying to get to me. But there's this force field that he can't get through. So he's throwing and literally throwing his body at this force field, trying to get to me. And he's thinking about our kids, and I could feel our children. I could see them. So wherever they weren't home. And he's worried about them. He's worried about me. He doesn't know what to do. However he died in this lifetime, it was very sudden. It was very sudden. I don't know exactly how it happened, but it was super sudden. He was healthy. It wasn't expected by any means. As I'm seeing this, I'm relaying this to him. And he is laying on my bed, having a visceral, cathartic release in response to everything that I'm relaying to him. And we go through this whole process of reclaiming an aspect of his soul. And I don't remember all the details of everything that we did. But I know it took us about an hour and a half. So eventually we complete the process. It was a whole thing. And when we come out, it had gotten dark and my whole room was dark. And I had an altar on the other side of the room and I had 2 candles. And I look over at the altar and the candle closest to us is now lit. It's burning. You can't make this shit up. And I point it out, and he says, did you light that? And I said, no. When would I have lit that? I've been right here with you this whole time. So we get up, shook. I mean, this was kind of spooky. It was a bit spooky. And we get up, and we go look at the candle. The wax had barely melted. So this candle could only have been burning for maybe 10 minutes. I'm telling you, you can't make this shit up. The funny synchronicity in this is that in the time when him and I were doing our little dance of, no, I'm not interested, but there's obviously a thing here from his end, he wrote me a song. My husband is a beautiful musician, and he wrote me a song and he sent it to me. And one of the lines in the song was, I will keep a candle lit for you. So from my perspective, that really sealed the deal. And we've been madly in love, happily in love ever since. We got married May of 2021 because if you remember, I only had a 3-month visa because I had been traveling so much. I could only be in the US for 3 months. And so it was a really funny thing. On the one hand, we knew we wanted to get married, but actually we have to get married or I have to leave the country. And so as quickly as we could, we got our wedding together it took us less than 3 weeks. I think we spent maybe $300. It was a backyard wedding. We got all of our friends in the community together and we threw the most beautiful, special wedding. And we married each other. We walked each other down the aisle. We were throwing flowers on each other. It was very untraditional. And it was one of the most special days of my entire life. So from the point of meeting each other and realizing that there was a thing between us. Now we met each other in October, but we reconnected in December 18th, the day I arrived in Austin. From that day, it was 5 months. We got married 5 months later. So he's only ever been my husband. He was never my boyfriend. Sometimes we joke around. Sometimes we'll take our wedding rings off because he goes to the gym and he'll take his wedding ring off. Whenever he does that, we pretend that we're engaged. Now he doesn't have his ring on, so. And he has proposed to me in really sweet moments. And babe, I mean this. I want a real proposal. I'm still waiting for it. And we've agreed that we will remarry each other every 7 years. And it is the best thing about my life. Hands down. Anyone who encounters my husband and I in relationship reflects how special our connection is. Truly, he is my soulmate. This life is not long enough. This lifetime is not a long enough period of time to spend with him. And I am just so lucky. I'm so lucky because without him, I wouldn't have been able to get to where I am today. He has been my biggest supporter. He has held me in my hardest moments. The fact that he met me at my lowest and stood by me when I was going through the most painful period of my life shows his character. And now I feel myself getting to be this radiant version of me. And it's such a gift to get to give back to him and to get to be the best version of me for him and for our children and for our family. So that's my love story. It's a good way to close it out. And now, wow, I just want to say that's such a surprise for me. I wasn't prepared to end the story here. I really thought that we were going to go a few more episodes, but that feels right. That feels right. I'm going to trust that any of the other stories that want to come through, they can come through, but that gets you up to speed on where I am now. I now find myself, and let's talk about that for a second. I now find myself in a state of radiant devotion and ecstasy. The level of liberation that I get to experience now on a day-to-day basis as my foundation is profound. The last 15 years of my life have been insane, and necessary and difficult and beautiful. But what I really feel now is that I'm getting to actually start at that blank slate. I get to start again with a fresh foundation. From the ground up, I have completely rebuilt who I am. And now, without the weight of my past and everything that I was holding, when I say 2025 was the final boss battle, where I truly closed the door on that ancestral curse and landed 2 feet fully anchored in the recognition of what I am and am not available for, fully here, fully ready to step into my purpose. It feels so right to be bringing this podcast to you at this time. Things are about to get so good. It feels right that on the 7th episode, 7 is my favorite number. It feels right that on the 7th episode, we would seal this all up. Something that I've been living by lately has been, well, one, I'm just at a place where I don't feel any need to prove anything. I think that it's valuable to know where I've came from and how I got here and to know the journey that I've been through. It was really hard. But at this point, I get to just be it now. That version of me that I saw in 2018, she is emerging through me now, and I see it. When I look in the mirror, even when I look in the camera now, I see her. That version of me that I saw then that I pushed away and I said, no, 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 because I didn't understand. How could I be that? And it is taking a great deal of work that I don't think I could ever even put into words. Work that I wouldn't even be able to express, like the depth of transformation that I've had to go through to get here. And now that I've been given that gift, because it truly feels like a miracle to be given the gift of who I get to be now, of health, of radiance, of aliveness, of consciousness, of this awakened state that I'm operating from. Now all I want to do is give back, because that's what happens. When you are given an answered prayer, the beautiful thing that happens is that the work that it takes for that prayer to really take form in your life, once you receive it, all you want to do is share it. And that's all I want to do. I want to share this with you. I want to share this healing. I want to share this love. I want to share this understanding, the wisdom that I have gained from this journey. Like I said, it's been 15 years I've been walking this path. I've learned a lot. And I will spend the rest of my life, I'm 33 years old, and I will spend the rest of my life giving back to you. Everything that I've learned, everything I've received, it is all yours. So welcome to my world. If you have any questions about any part of my story, I am an open book. Ask away, ask away. I'm available for podcasts, interviews, book deals, whatever you want. I actually have a funny, that I see today. I have a funny joke with God is that I will write a book. I would love to write this in book form, but only if it lands in my lap. I'm not going looking for it. I'm not even going to start writing it unless somebody says, hey, yeah, let's write a book. So, perhaps that's a prayer. We're planting the seed. I'm planting the seed in the quantum field. If there's a book out there for me, I'm willing to receive. Next episode, I don't know. I don't know where we'll go. I'm giving it to God. I'm giving it to God because we're now up to speed. We're now in the present moment together. Thank you so much for receiving my story. Ooh, it feels so good to be here. Like relieving. To not have the weight of my past. And really, honestly, I got to the point where I almost didn't want to tell this story because I was so ready to move on. I'm ready to do literally anything else. I've been on the healing hamster wheel, and necessarily so. I've had to do deep healing work to repair my nervous system and my body, to get my body back to a baseline neutral of health and wellness and happiness and joy and safety. But I'm here now, awake and aware and ready to go. And so I'm curious to know what comes through this broadcast now. Thank you again. I'm just going to end it here. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me for the Awaken Broadcast. If this episode resonated with you, supported you, or awakened something within you, I'd love for you to subscribe or follow the show. Leave a review, share it with a friend, or drop a comment wherever you're listening or watching. It genuinely helps this work reach the people it's meant for, and I'm very grateful for that. If you want to go deeper, you can find me on Instagram at Awaken with Cecilia, Cecilia, or explore everything I offer at awakenwithcecilia.com. I've linked it all for you in the show notes, masterclasses, my monthly membership, and other ways to dive in. Thanks again for being here. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next broadcast. Until then, I'm sending you so much love.